I found something in the clearance aisle that wasn't supposed to be there, and it found me first. The fluorescent lights in Dollar Tree always hum a little too loud. I noticed that the first time I started working there, back in the fall of 2019. I was 22, just out of college, and trying to save up enough to move into my own place. The store was quiet most nights, small town, few customers after 8. That suited me fine. I liked the stillness, the rows of plastic toys, the greeting cards, the cleaning supplies lined up like tiny soldiers. Everything had a place, everything made sense, until the night I worked closing shift alone. It was a Tuesday in late October, cold enough that I wore a hoodie under my work vest. The manager, Diane, had called in sick. She asked if I could lock up by myself. I said yes. I'd done it a handful of times before. It wasn't hard. Just count the register, turn off the lights, lock the doors, go home. Simple. But that night, something felt different. The first customer came in around 8:45, an older man in a brown coat. He didn't say hello, just wandered toward the back of the store. I watched him from the register, the way we were trained to do. He moved slowly, stopped in front of the seasonal aisle, stood there for a long time. Too long. I glanced at the clock, 8:52. When I looked back, he was gone. I didn't hear the door chime, didn't see him leave. But the store felt empty again. I told myself he must have slipped out while I was looking down. At 9:15, I started sweeping. The aisles were clean, but it gave me something to do. I moved through the store with my broom, humming under my breath to fill the silence. That's when I saw it. Aisle 7, the clearance aisle. There was a shopping cart sitting in the middle of the row. It hadn't been there before, I was sure of it. I'd just swept that aisle 10 minutes ago. I walked over. The cart was full, canned goods, batteries, a stuffed bear with a missing eye, a pack of birthday candles, a bottle of dish soap, random things that didn't go together. But the strangest part, everything in the cart was covered in dust, thick dust, like it had been sitting in a warehouse for years. I reached out and touched the bear. My fingers came away gray. A chill crawled up my spine. I wheeled the cart to the front. I didn't know what else to do. Maybe someone had been playing a prank. Maybe it was left over from inventory. I told myself it didn't matter. But as I pushed the cart, I heard something. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the back of the store. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. My heart started to race. I scanned the aisles, the mirrors in the corners. Nothing. I was alone. I had to be. I left the cart by the register and walked toward the back. The lights flickered as I moved. Just once. Just enough to make my stomach tighten. I checked the restroom. Empty. I checked the stockroom. Empty. I checked the loading dock, locked from the inside. No one was there, but when I came back to the front, the cart was gone. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where it had been. My hands were shaking. I told myself I'd moved it and forgotten, that I was tired, that my mind was playing tricks. But then I heard it again, the footsteps. This time they were closer. I turned around. At the far end of aisle 3, I saw a shape, a person, standing perfectly still, facing me. It was the man in the brown coat. "We're closed," I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. He didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, hands at his sides, head tilted slightly to the left. I took a step back. He took a step forward. I ran to the front door. My hands fumbled with the lock. My breath came fast and shallow. I could hear him behind me now. Not running, just walking, steady, certain. I got the door open and stumbled outside into the cold air. I turned back. The man was standing just inside the glass, watching me. His face was pale, his eyes were dark, and his mouth was smiling. I didn't go back inside. I called Diane from my car, told her I'd had an emergency. She was annoyed, but she didn't ask questions. I drove home with my hands locked on the wheel, glancing in the rearview mirror every few seconds. The next day, I came in for my shift. Diane was at the register. She looked tired. "Did you leave the back door unlocked last night?" she asked. My stomach dropped. "No. Why?" "Someone went through the clearance aisle, made a mess, left a cart full of old inventory we haven't stocked in years." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. I worked at Dollar Tree for 3 more weeks. I never worked a closing shift alone again. And I never went down aisle 7 after dark, because some things don't want to be found, and some things don't want to be left behind. The woman in the parking lot asked me for help. I should have kept walking. Quick question before we dive in. Have you ever had a stranger approach you in a parking lot at night? Let me know in the comments. I think a lot of us have a story like that. I used to shop at Dollar Tree every Sunday afternoon. It was part of my routine. I'm a creature of habit, always have been. I'd go after lunch, around 2 or 3, when the store was quiet and the aisles were freshly stocked. I liked picking up little things: notebooks, dish towels, candles that smelled like vanilla or cinnamon. Nothing I needed, just things that made my apartment feel more like home. This happened in the summer of 2021. I was 29, living alone in a small city in Ohio, working from home, spending too much time by myself. That Sunday, I got to the store a little later than usual, around 4:30. The sun was still bright, but the parking lot was nearly empty, only 3 or 4 cars. I grabbed a cart and went inside. The store was cool and quiet. A couple with a toddler browsed the toy aisle. An older man stood by the greeting cards. The cashier leaned on the counter, scrolling through her phone. I moved through the aisles slowly. I picked up a set of kitchen towels, a pack of sponges, a small ceramic planter shaped like a turtle. I smiled at that one. It was silly, cute. I put it in my cart. The air conditioning hummed overhead. The fluorescent lights flickered once, twice, then settled. I noticed the couple with the toddler had left. The older man was gone too. It was just me and the cashier now. I didn't mind. I liked the quiet. I wandered over to the seasonal aisle. They had summer clearance items, beach toys, sunscreen, flip-flops in bright colors. I picked up a pair of sunglasses, pink frames, cheap plastic. I tried them on using the small mirror clipped to the shelf. Behind me, in the reflection, I thought I saw someone standing at the end of the aisle. I turned around. No one was there. I put the sunglasses back and moved on. By the time I checked out, it was almost 5:15. The cashier barely looked at me as she scanned my items. She bagged everything in 2 plastic bags and handed them over. "Have a good one," she said flatly. "You too," I replied. I pushed my cart toward the exit. The sun sat lower in the sky now. The light in the parking lot had turned golden and soft. Long shadows stretched across the asphalt. I pushed my cart toward my car, a blue Honda Civic parked near the back. That's when I saw her, a woman standing by the cart return. She was younger than me, maybe mid-20s. She wore a long gray sweater and jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked normal, harmless. But something about the way she stood made me pause. She wasn't moving, just staring at the ground. Her arms hung at her sides. Her posture was stiff, unnatural. I loaded my bags into the trunk. When I turned around, she was looking at me. "Excuse me," she called out. Her voice was soft, polite. I hesitated. My instinct told me to get in the car, to leave. But she looked harmless, and I felt guilty for being suspicious. "Can you help me?" she asked. I walked a little closer, not too close, just enough to hear her better. "What's wrong?" I asked. She smiled, a small, tired smile. My car won't start. I think the battery's dead. Do you have jumper cables? I glanced around the parking lot. There were only 2 other cars now, both far away, both empty. I don't, I said. But I can call someone for you if you need. She shook her head. No, it's okay. I don't know what to do. She looked down again. Her hands fidgeted with the hem of her sweater. Something felt off. I couldn't explain it, but my stomach tightened. The air felt heavier, warmer. The sun was setting behind the tree line. The golden light was fading fast. Where's your car? I asked. She pointed toward the far corner of the lot, near the dumpsters. I looked. There was no car there, just empty asphalt, a row of shopping carts, a chain-link fence separating the lot from the woods beyond. I don't see it, I said. Her smile didn't change. It's right there. You just have to walk over. My heart started to beat faster. I'm sorry, I said. I really can't help. I turned to get into my car. Wait. Her voice was sharper now. I stopped. When I turned back, she was closer, much closer. I hadn't heard her move. I said I need help. Her eyes were different now, wider, darker. Her smile was still there, but it didn't reach her eyes. The light around us seemed dimmer, the shadows longer. I'm sorry, I said again. I have to go. I opened my car door. She grabbed my wrist. Her hand was cold, too cold, like she'd been standing in a freezer. Her grip was strong, tight. Please, she said, just come with me. It'll only take a minute. I yanked my arm away and got into the car. I locked the doors immediately. She stood there, staring at me through the window. Her face didn't move. Her smile didn't move. Her eyes didn't blink. I started the engine and backed out. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely steer. As I pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror. She was still standing there, watching, not moving. I drove to the exit. My breath was shallow. My chest felt tight. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Another woman, standing by the store entrance. Same gray sweater, same ponytail, same face. She waved at me, slowly, deliberately. I slammed on the gas and drove out of the parking lot. I didn't stop until I was 3 blocks away. I pulled into a gas station and sat there, engine running, hands gripping the wheel. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo of me, standing in the Dollar Tree parking lot, loading bags into my trunk, taken from behind. Underneath the photo, a message. You should have helped. I didn't go back to that Dollar Tree for months. When I finally did, I asked the cashier if anyone had reported anything strange in the parking lot. She looked at me like I was crazy. Strange how? She asked. I didn't know how to explain it, so I just said never mind. But I still think about her, the woman by the cart return, the woman by the door. I think about how cold her hand was, how empty the corner of the parking lot looked, and I wonder what would have happened if I'd followed her. Sometimes, late at night, I'll be getting ready for bed, and I'll hear a knock at my door, soft, polite. I never answer, because I'm afraid of who I'll see, and I'm afraid she'll be smiling. I bought a mirror at Dollar Tree for $3. It came with something I didn't pay for. I moved into my first apartment in March of 2020, right when the world was shutting down, right when everything felt strange and uncertain. I was 24, fresh out of college, working my first real job as a graphic designer. The apartment was small, a studio in a quiet part of town, but it was mine. I didn't have much furniture, a futon, a folding table, a lamp I'd bought at a thrift store, but I was proud of it. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to walk to the Dollar Tree a few blocks away. I needed cleaning supplies, paper towels, maybe some decorations to make the place feel less empty. The store was busy. Families with masks, people stocking up on toilet paper and hand sanitizer. I grabbed a basket and started browsing. I found myself in aisle 9, home decor, picture frames, fake flowers, candles, and mirrors. There was a small rectangular mirror leaning against the bottom shelf. It had a thin black frame, nothing fancy, but it was the right size to hang above my bathroom sink. I picked it up. The glass was clean, no cracks, no scratches. It felt heavier than I expected. I turned it over. There was a small sticker on the back, $3. Perfect. I put it in my basket. When I got home, I set the mirror on my kitchen counter. I planned to hang it up later, but for now, I left it there while I unpacked the rest of my things. That night, I worked late on a project for a client. I didn't get to bed until after midnight. I brushed my teeth in the bathroom, washed my face, turned off the light. As I walked past the kitchen, I glanced at the mirror and froze. In the reflection, I saw someone standing behind me. I spun around. No one was there. My heart pounded in my chest. I looked back at the mirror, just my own reflection now, pale, wide-eyed. I told myself I was tired, that my mind was playing tricks. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window. I felt better, calmer. I made coffee and sat at my folding table with my laptop. The mirror was still on the counter. I decided to hang it up. I found a nail in my toolbox, a hammer. I measured the wall above the bathroom sink and marked the spot. It took me a few tries, but I got it up. I stepped back and looked at it. It looked good, simple, clean. I smiled. Then I noticed something. In the reflection, the bathroom door was closed. But when I turned around, the door was open. I blinked. I looked back at the mirror. Now the door was open in the reflection too. I rubbed my eyes. I needed more coffee. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. Small things at first. I'd catch movement in the mirror out of the corner of my eye, but when I looked directly at it, nothing was there. I'd hear soft sounds at night, like footsteps, like someone walking around my apartment. But I lived alone. I told myself it was the building settling, the neighbors upstairs, the pipes. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One night, I came home late from work. It was almost 10 p.m. I was exhausted. I dropped my bag by the door and kicked off my shoes. The apartment was dark. I reached for the light switch. That's when I saw it. In the bathroom mirror, a face, not mine. It was a woman. Pale skin, dark hair, hollow eyes. She was standing in the reflection, right behind where I would be if I walked into the bathroom. But I wasn't in the bathroom. I was standing in the doorway, and she was staring at me. I stumbled backward. My back hit the wall. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The woman in the mirror didn't move either. She just stared. Her mouth was slightly open, like she was trying to speak, and then slowly she raised her hand. She pressed it against the glass. From the inside, I ran to the front door. I grabbed my keys and my phone. I didn't look back. I spent the night at a friend's place. I told her I'd had a nightmare, that I needed to get out of my apartment for a while. She didn't ask questions. The next morning, I went back. It was daylight. The apartment felt normal again. I walked into the bathroom. The mirror was still there. I looked at my reflection. Just me. No woman. No face. But when I looked closer, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. There was a small handprint on the glass, on the inside, pressed against the surface, like someone had been trying to get out. I took the mirror down that day. I wrapped it in a garbage bag and threw it in the dumpster behind my building. I didn't want to risk donating it. I didn't want anyone else to find it. For a few days, everything was fine. I slept better. The apartment felt lighter. But then, one evening, I came home from work, and the mirror was back. It was leaning against my front door, still in the garbage bag, still wrapped up. I stood there, staring at it. My hands started shaking. I didn't bring it back inside. I called my landlord, told him someone had left something outside my door, asked if he could remove it. He said he would. The next day, it was gone. I moved out of that apartment 3 months later. I told people it was because I wanted more space, a better location. But the truth is, I couldn't stay there anymore, because even after I threw the mirror away, I still felt her, the woman in the glass, watching me, waiting. Sometimes late at night, I'll be brushing my teeth, and I'll catch movement in the bathroom mirror, just for a second, just long enough to make me wonder. And I'll think about that handprint, pressed against the glass, from the inside. I never bought another mirror from Dollar Tree, and I never will. The night shift at Dollar Tree was supposed to be easy money, until I found the storage room that wasn't on the floor plan. Quick question for you. Have you ever worked a job where you felt like you weren't alone, even when you were? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. I started working at Dollar Tree in the fall of 2018. I was 19, taking a gap year before college, trying to save money. The store was in a strip mall on the edge of town, next to a laundromat and a nail salon that had been closed for years. It wasn't a bad job. The pay was okay. The work was simple. Stock shelves, run the register, clean up at the end of the night. Most of my shifts were during the day, but sometimes they'd schedule me for closing. That meant working until 11 p.m. with one other person. Usually it was fine, but one night I worked with someone I'd never met before. His name was Derek. He was older than me, maybe mid-30s, quiet. He wore a black hoodie and kept his head down most of the shift. We didn't talk much. I stayed at the register. He restocked the aisles. By 10:30, the store was empty. The last customer had left 20 minutes earlier. I started counting the register. Derek disappeared into the back. I assumed he was taking out the trash or organizing the stockroom. But then I heard something, a door closing. Not the back door, not the bathroom, something else. I finished counting the register and locked the cash drawer. I walked toward the back of the store. "Derek?" I called out. No answer. The stockroom door was open. The light was on. I stepped inside. Boxes lined the walls, shelves stacked with overstock, the smell of cardboard and dust, but no Derek. "Derek!" I called again. Still nothing. I was about to leave when I noticed something. There was another door, at the far end of the stockroom, painted the same color as the walls. Easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. I'd worked here for 3 months, and I'd never seen it before. I walked over. The door was old. The paint was chipped. There was no handle, just a small metal latch. I pressed my ear against it. Silence. I lifted the latch. The door creaked open. Inside was a narrow hallway. The walls were bare concrete. The floor was dusty. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, flickering weakly. It smelled like mildew, like something had been closed up for a long time. "Derek?" My voice echoed. I took a step inside. The hallway stretched about 15 feet. At the end was another door. This one was metal, newer. I walked toward it. My footsteps sounded too loud in the silence. When I reached the door, I noticed something. There was a small window at eye level. Reinforced glass, scratched and cloudy. I leaned closer and looked through. Inside was a small room, empty, just concrete walls, a bare floor, a single overhead light. And in the center of the room, facing away from me, was Derek. He was standing perfectly still. His arms hung at his sides. His head was tilted slightly forward. "Derek?" I said, louder this time. He didn't move. I knocked on the window. Still nothing. I tried the door handle. It was unlocked. I pushed it open. The air inside was colder, much colder. I stepped into the room. "Derek, are you okay?" He didn't respond. I walked around to face him, and I froze. His eyes were open, wide open, but he wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the wall, unblinking. His mouth was slightly open. His face was pale. "Derek?" I reached out and touched his shoulder. He was ice cold, and then, slowly, his head turned toward me. His eyes locked onto mine, but there was nothing behind them. No recognition, no emotion, just emptiness. His mouth moved. A low, rasping sound came out. Not words, just sound. I stumbled backward. My back hit the wall. Derek took a step toward me, then another. His movements were stiff, jerky, like something was pulling his strings. I bolted for the door. I ran down the hallway, through the stockroom, past the register. I didn't stop until I was outside in the parking lot. I stood there, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone and called my manager. She didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. I looked back at the store. The lights were still on. Through the window, I could see Derek. He was standing at the register, staring out at me. I didn't go back inside. I sat in my car until my manager finally called me back at midnight. I told her what happened. She sounded annoyed. "Where's Derek?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "He's still in there." "Well, you can't just leave the store unlocked." "I'm not going back in there." She sighed. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. When she arrived, we went inside together. Derek was gone. The register was closed. The lights were off in the back. The stockroom was empty. "Where's the door?" I asked. "What door?" "The one in the back, the hallway." She looked at me like I was crazy. "There's no hallway." I walked to the stockroom. I went to the far wall. The door was gone. Just a blank wall, painted beige. No seams, no latch, nothing. "I swear it was here," I said. My manager crossed her arms. "Go home, you're tired." I left, but I didn't go home. I sat in my car for an hour, watching the store, waiting for something, anything. Nothing happened. The next day, I asked about Derek. "Who?" my manager said. "Derek, the guy I worked with last night." She frowned. "You worked alone last night." "No, I worked with Derek. He was restocking." She pulled up the schedule on her computer. "See? Just you." I stared at the screen. She was right. Only my name was listed. I quit 2 days later. I told them I got a better offer, that I needed to focus on school. But the truth is, I couldn't go back, because every time I walked past the stockroom, I felt it. The cold air, the silence. And I swore I could hear something behind the walls. Sometimes late at night, I'll be lying in bed, and I'll hear that sound again. The low, rasping sound Derek made. Not words, just sound. And I'll wonder if he's still in that room, standing in the cold, waiting. My daughter found a doll at Dollar Tree. It only cost $1. But some things are cheap for a reason. Before we begin this last story, have you ever bought a toy that just felt wrong? Maybe for your kid, or even for yourself when you were young. Let me know in the comments. Sometimes objects carry more than we realize. This happened in the winter of 2019. My daughter Emma had just turned 6. She loved dolls, baby dolls, Barbie dolls, any kind of doll. For her birthday, we'd gone to the toy store and let her pick out whatever she wanted. She chose a big stuffed unicorn and was thrilled. But 2 weeks later, she saw a doll at Dollar Tree. We were shopping for party supplies. Emma's best friend was having a birthday party that weekend, and we needed to grab a card and some wrapping paper. Emma wandered off while I was looking at the cards. When I found her, she was standing in the toy aisle, holding a doll. It was a cheap-looking thing. Plastic body, painted face, blonde hair that looked like it had been glued on in clumps. The kind of doll you'd see at a dollar store and think nothing of. But Emma was staring at it like it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. "Mommy, can I have her?" I looked at the price tag. $1. "You just got a unicorn for your birthday, sweetie." "Please, she's so pretty." I sighed. It was $1. What was the harm? "Okay, but this is it for a while. No more toys." Emma beamed. She hugged the doll to her chest. We checked out and went home. That night, Emma named the doll Lucy. She carried Lucy everywhere, to dinner, to the bathroom, to bed. I didn't think much of it. Kids get attached to things. But over the next few days, I started to notice something. Emma was talking to Lucy, not pretend talking, real talking, like she was having a conversation. One afternoon, I walked past Emma's room. The door was cracked open. Emma was sitting on her bed. Lucy was propped up on a pillow across from her. "I don't know," Emma said. "Mommy said I can't." Silence. Then Emma nodded. "Okay, I'll ask her again." I knocked on the door and pushed it open. Emma looked up. "Who were you talking to, sweetie?" "Lucy." "What were you talking about?" Emma smiled. "She wants to go to the park." I forced a smile back. "Maybe tomorrow, okay?" Emma nodded, but when I left the room, I felt uneasy. That night I woke up to a sound. Footsteps. Small footsteps, padding down the hallway. I sat up in bed and listened. The footsteps stopped outside my door. "Emma?" I called softly. No answer. I got up and opened the door. The hallway was empty. I walked to Emma's room. The door was open. She was asleep in her bed. Lucy was tucked in beside her. I stood there for a moment watching. Everything looked normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next day, Emma asked if she could take Lucy to school. "It's not show and tell day, honey." "But Lucy wants to go. Maybe next week." Emma's face fell. She didn't argue, but she looked upset. That afternoon, when I picked her up from school, her teacher pulled me aside. "Is everything okay at home?" she asked. "Yes, why?" "Emma's been talking to herself a lot lately, during class, during recess. We've tried redirecting her, but she insists she's talking to someone named Lucy." My stomach tightened. "I'll talk to her." That night, I sat Emma down. "Your teacher says you've been talking to Lucy at school." Emma nodded. "Honey, Lucy's not real, she's a doll." Emma's eyes widened. "She is real, Mommy. She talks to me." "Dolls can't talk, sweetie." Emma crossed her arms. "Lucy can." I didn't know what to say. "Okay, but you need to listen to your teacher at school, okay?" Emma nodded, but she didn't look convinced. A few nights later, I woke up again. This time I heard singing, a soft, high-pitched voice, coming from Emma's room. I got up and walked down the hallway. The door was open. Emma was sitting up in bed. Lucy was in her lap, and the singing was coming from Lucy. I froze. The doll's mouth wasn't moving, but the sound was definitely coming from it. A lullaby, slow and eerie. Emma looked at me and smiled. "Lucy's singing to me, Mommy." I walked into the room and took the doll from her hands. "Emma, go back to sleep." "But Lucy, now." Emma's lip quivered, but she lay down. I took the doll and left the room. I went to the kitchen. I stood there staring at the doll. Lucy stared back at me. Her painted eyes were flat, lifeless. But I swore I felt something, a presence. I opened the trash can and dropped her in. I tied up the bag and took it outside to the bin. When I came back inside, I locked the door. I felt relieved. It was over. But the next morning, Emma came downstairs crying. "Where's Lucy?" I threw her away. "Why?" "Because she was scaring me, honey." Emma's face crumpled. "But she's my friend." "You have other dolls." "I don't want other dolls. I want Lucy." She cried for an hour. I felt terrible, but I knew I'd made the right choice. That night, I went to check on Emma before bed. She was already asleep. I pulled the blanket up to her chin and turned to leave. That's when I saw it. Lucy, sitting on the dresser, staring at me. My heart stopped. I'd thrown her away. I was sure of it. I walked over and picked her up. She was clean. No dirt, no smell. Like she'd never been in the trash at all. I took her downstairs. This time I didn't throw her away. I put her in a plastic bag. Then another. Then another. I drove to a dumpster across town and threw her in. I watched the truck come the next morning and take everything away. She was gone for good. But that night, Emma came into my room. She was holding Lucy. She came back, Mommy. I stared at the doll, at Emma. I didn't know what to say. She said she'll always come back. We moved 3 months later. I told my husband it was because I wanted to be closer to my parents, that the commute was too long. But the truth is, I couldn't stay in that house anymore. On moving day, I packed up Emma's room. I couldn't find Lucy. I looked everywhere, under the bed, in the closet, in the toy box. She was gone. I was relieved. But a week after we moved in, Emma came downstairs with a smile. Look, Mommy, Lucy found us. She was holding the doll. I felt the blood drain from my face. Where did you get that? She was in my closet. Emma hugged the doll tight. She said she missed me. I stopped trying to get rid of Lucy after that, because I realized something. It didn't matter where I threw her. It didn't matter how far we moved. Lucy wasn't going anywhere. Emma's 10 now. She doesn't play with dolls anymore. But Lucy is still in her room, sitting on the shelf, watching, waiting. And sometimes, late at night, I'll walk past Emma's door, and I'll hear it, that soft, high-pitched voice, singing. Thank you for listening to all 5 True Dollar Store horror stories. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope they make you think twice the next time you're browsing those aisles late at night. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let me know which story creeped you out the most. I'd love to hear from you. Sleep well, and remember, some bargains come with a price you can't see on the tag.